you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Joe Caltabiano, what is the biggest risk?
So in real estate, I think the number one risk as you're looking to grow a real estate portfolio is access to capital. And that access can come in the form of equity or debt. But, as you have um, tightening of free cash flow for people, maybe their investment dollars are a little smaller. And as we sit as a private REIT, unlike a public company, where you're picking up multi-million dollar checks. Our check size, again, the minimum for qualified investors is 250,000. Those are regular people a lot of times, so they are impacted by what's going on in the world. So access to capital, not only on the equity side and what's in people's pockets today, but also access to capital through the lending institutions and banks. So kind of blending out where that risk is, and ultimately what's your cost of capital. Because if you build a model that anticipates X as a return and you're wildly off because lack of access to capital creates a higher cost of capital, because as the pools shrink, you're paying more to get that money in either the form of equity or in the form of interest rate. So access to capital is by far the driving factor of kind of number one risk thing for us. So what that means is I talk to more investors than I did in both of my previous industries. My hit rate for success is probably lower than my fragile ego thought it would be when I got into this space. But talking to more investors, spreading a wider net to talk to more people, and then on the debt side, it's talking to more banks and more lending institutions, because unfortunately, until you have that fully signed deal with them, things can happen. I've seen banks close. I've been in mid underwriting where the board decides to shut off lending. And that's, again, they do that to protect themselves. It's never anything personal with you, because they wouldn't have given you the term sheet. But when a board says we're not lending more money, there's very few things you can say to the loan officer to get them to open up that vault and give you capital. So, talk to more investors, talk to more banks, casting a broader net, and really just getting out there and playing the hand-to-hand combat game, which I certainly enjoy. But again, when we launched Healing Realty Trust, a year plus ago, I would have thought there was more capital than maybe I was able to stumble into.